In the headlines, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe stays away from the controversial Yasukuni Shrine for a fall festival, but does donate a ceremonial offering, prompting the governments of China and Korea to express regret and concern. With the goal of opening a new era of cooperation in Eurasia in mind, President Park Geun-hye proposes a new trade route linking Korea to Europe, the so-called Silk Road Express. The U.S. government gets back to business, but Washington is not out of the woods yet. After a 16-day shutdown, President Barack Obama says the debt crisis has damaged the U.S. economy. Well, these stories and more next on Primetime News. Good evening and welcome to Primetime News. It's Friday, October 18th here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I am Yoo Ji-hae.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thank you so much for joining us. We begin in Japan, where a record number of lawmakers visited the controversial Yasukuni Shrine on this Friday, which angered Asian victims of Japan's wartime atrocities.
Meanwhile, the issues of correcting historical distortions by Japan, as well as those found within local textbooks, were discussed during Korea's parliamentary audit on Friday. Kim Hyun-ji reports.
Japan's Internal Affairs and Communications Minister Yoshitaka Shinzo on Friday paid a visit to the Yasukuni Shrine in Tokyo on the occasion of an autumn festival there that began Thursday. Reports say that a bipartisan group of 159 Japanese lawmakers also visited the shrine Friday morning, which, according to Japan's Sankei Shimbun, is the largest number of lawmakers to visit for the festival since 1989. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, however, stayed away in an apparent gesture to mend ties with Korea and China. The two Asian nations, both victims of Japanese aggression before and during World War II, regard Yasukuni as a symbol of the country's past militarism, as it enshrines 14 Class A war criminals along with its war dead. The Prime Minister did, however, make an offering of a masakaki tree Thursday. Seoul's Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Thursday expressed regret and concern about Abe's offering, saying that Yasukuni glorifies Japan's past militarism. Ongoing conflicts with neighboring countries over historical matters came up when Korea's Parliamentary Committee on Education audited the nation's educational institutions on Friday. A new Korean history textbook authored by conservatives, preliminarily approved for use in high schools next year, took center stage. Critics say the textbook from Kyohak Publishing Corporation glamorizes Japan's imperial rule over Korea and the Koreans who supported it.
The textbook by Kyohak says Japan's colonization of Korea contributed to the nation's modernization. What's your take on that?
I oppose that theory. That's something that Korea cannot accept.
I support the view that Japan suppressed and plundered Korea.
The lawmakers also demanded that the heads of history and education institutions focus on countering attempts made by Japan and China to distort Korean history. They stressed that true peace in the region can only be achieved when the countries resolve their historical conflicts. Kim Hyun-ji, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye elaborated on her vision to open a new era of cooperation in Eurasia on this Friday.
The Korean leader proposed a new trade route linking Korea to Europe to help connect distribution networks in Eurasia and overcome physical barriers that hamper exchange. Our presidential office correspondent Jin-ju has more on the Silk Road Express.
President Park proposed binding the Eurasian region into a single continent. The first step towards this goal, she says, is creating a distribution network that connects northeastern Eurasia by railway and roads.
궁극적으로 이를 유럽까지 연결해서 부산을 출발해 북한, 러시아, 중국, 중앙아시아, 유럽을 관통하는 실크로드 익스프레스를 실현해 나가야 합니다.
Speaking at the first international conference on Eurasian cooperation in Seoul on Friday, President Park also proposed setting up an energy network through gas and oil pipelines, as Eurasia is composed of both energy-producing and consuming countries. She called on Eurasian countries to push ahead with joint projects to develop energy resources, such as shale gas in China and crude oil and gas in East Siberia. Creating a Eurasian economic bloc was another of President Park's proposals.
유라시아 지역은 서쪽으로는 EU, 남쪽으로는 아세안, 태평양 건너에는 나프타 등 단일 시장을 위한 제도적 기반을 갖추고 있습니다.
The president emphasized the importance of tearing down regulatory barriers that block trade and investment, and said Korea, China, and Japan should accelerate trilateral FTA talks and link up with other regional trade deals, such as the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership and the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Experts say President Park's Eurasian plan will support her administration's key goals of boosting the economy and setting up a foundation for a peaceful reunification. Cooperation among Eurasian nations could also eventually pressure North Korea to open up.
물류, 에너지, 인적 교류를 비롯한 대부분의 협력 과제들이 남북 관계의 안정과 북한의 개혁 개방 없이는 풀어가기 어려운 과제입니다.
A creation of a huge economic bloc in the region would also help Korea further expand its trade and economic cooperation. Eurasia accounts for 40% of the world's landmass, 71% of the world's population, and 60% of the world's GDP. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News.
It was a collaborative effort to boost safeguards of the online world. The largest global conference on cyberspace came to a successful end in Seoul on this Friday.
The participants adopted a so-called Seoul framework, which will serve as a guideline for dealing with cyber-related issues. Park Geun-hye has the details.
Around 1,500 officials and IT experts from some 90 countries adopted the first international agreement on cyber-related issues at the Seoul Conference on Cyberspace 2013 on Friday. The so-called Seoul framework will serve as a guideline for dealing with issues ranging from cyber crimes and cyber terrorism to the internet economy.
The Seoul framework is significant because it is the first document that outlines the discussions between the international community and that will determine the direction of future discussions. It will be distributed to the UN and OECD to be used as reference documents.
Countering cross-border cyber terrorism, which is becoming increasingly common, was a key issue on the agenda. Participants agreed that any country that wages a cyber attack must be held accountable. The Seoul conference also served as an opportunity for participants to share their greater understanding on the importance of preserving the online community as an open space by protecting the freedom of expression.
I think there has been a growing consensus. It isn't there yet. I don't think any of us would pretend that it is. The more we talk to each other, the more we collaborate, the more we share good practice, the more we understand each other's position, I think the greater the consensus.
The annual conference is the third of its kind, with previous meetings being held in London and in Budapest. This year's event not only yielded the largest ever number of participants, it was the first time that developing nations were invited. The participating nations agreed on the need to support developing nations to ensure that all countries benefit from the internet. The Netherlands has been selected as the next host country for the conference on cyberspace. The next meeting will take place in early 2015, as officials are currently reviewing the possibility of shifting this annual event into a biannual one. Park Geun-hye, Arirang News.
Korea may not build any additional nuclear power plants for the next 20 years amid growing concerns over the safety of nuclear power.
In fact, an energy plan has called for half of the nation's nuclear reactors to be replaced by liquefied natural gas plants. Our Kim Young-gil has more on the nation's energy future.
This is a liquefied natural gas power plant in Korea. Natural gas is combusted to generate electricity and is perceived as one of the cleanest available sources to generate power. The government had previously planned to raise the reliance on nuclear power plants to 40% by 2035, from just under 30% now. but it is now proposing to reduce the reliance to 20%.
A revision reflects the need to lower the reliance on nuclear power plants for Korea's electricity needs, as the 40% reliance is unrealistic.
However, running LNG power plants is expensive. To generate the same amount of power, LNG power stations is 3 times more costly than nuclear plants. In managing our power needs, a 1 percentage point energy source change from nuclear to LNG will push electricity prices up by 2%. That means increasing Korea's reliance on LNG power plants to 40% will drive up electricity fees by 40%. But will industries and households be able to bear the expected price hikes?
Korea's core industries are steel, petrochemistry, and semiconductors that use a lot of electricity. If electricity prices go up, then it would be a burden for both the industries and households.
The government expects Korea's electricity consumption to double in 20 years. Even if Korea lowers its reliance on nuclear source to 20% of power needs, it will be inevitable for the nation to build more nuclear stations. Korea currently operates 23 nuclear reactors and is building 5 new nuclear power plants. Kim Hyung-kyun, Arirang News.
Korea's missile defense capabilities have been a hot topic as of late, with speculation rising that Seoul might join hands with Washington on a U.S.-led missile defense system.
For an in-depth look into some of the issues at play, we are joined by our Kim Hyun-bin in the studio. Hyun-bin, walk us through the controversy.
Hey guys, the U.S. has long argued that its allies in this region must share a defense burden. While South Korea has resisted joining the U.S. missile defense system, which could undermine missile capabilities of China, Korea's largest trading partner. Earlier this week, Korea's defense minister Kim Kwang-jin denied speculation Seoul might join the U.S. missile program. He said it was too expensive and its huge interception range is unnecessary on the Korean peninsula. Seoul's defense ministry says Korea needs to focus on its own low-altitude system that is already under development. It's called Korea Air and Missile Defense, or KAMD. Let's take a closer look.
KAMD is a multi-level missile defense system Korea is in the process of developing. The system fits Korea's terrain and the threats facing the nation. KAMD currently focuses on low-altitude missile threats, since most of North Korea's missiles targeting South Korea are not ballistic missiles and have a range of 1,000 kilometers or less.
But the KAMD system has its weak points. The interceptor missile currently being used is the Patriot II, also known as PAC-2. But this missile was originally built to take down aircraft, not missiles. The military is currently focusing on upgrading its PAC-2s to PAC-3s, which have better accuracy and efficiency. I spoke to a weapons expert about the issue. Let's hear what he has to say.
The PAC-2 explodes near the ballistic missile or target and the debris takes it down. A PAC-3 directly collides with the enemy missile, so the PAC-3 is more reliable and accurate than the PAC-2.
Instead of joining the U.S. system, Defense Minister Kim said the South Korean military will enhance its KAMD program, so South Korea will be able to better counter missile threats with its own technology. On top of that, the South Korean government is scheduled to finish developing mid- and long-range surface-to-air missiles by 2022.
So are there capabilities of Washington's system that far surpass the KAMD?
Yes, the U.S. missile defense system is multi-layered and is considered the best in the world. And to show you what Washington capabilities are, let's take a look at this graph. As you can see, the U.S. system works on a 3-layer missile defense network. The first line of defense comes from the Aegis rocket, which is designed to knock out an incoming ballistic missile while it's in space. If that fails, a theater high-altitude area defense interceptor, also known as THAAD, intercepts the missile just as it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere. The final layer of defense is the lower-altitude Patriot missile. Experts say the chance of a ballistic missile slipping through all three layers is very slim. Korea does not have a high-altitude missile defense system, but experts say that if the Korea Air and Missiles Defense System, which is a low-altitude missile defense system, is fully implemented in 2022, Korea will be able to successfully intercept missile attacks from Pyongyang.
So aside from the cost issue, what other factors stand in the way for the South Korean military of adopting this U.S. System?
From a security standpoint, experts say it would have definitely worried South Korea's neighbors, such as namely China and Russia. Let's hear what this expert had to say.
If the U.S. system was implemented, it would restrain nuclear and missile capabilities of the countries in the region. The U.S. will be able to intercept missiles using its multi-level system. This will greatly reduce the effectiveness of the ballistic missiles, which in turn will break the strategic balance between those countries.
Other experts point out, however, that at some point, whether it's with our own technology or not, Korea needs to obtain high-tech missile defense program, as Pyongyang is trying to enhance its ballistic missile capabilities.
All right, Hyun-bin, thanks for clearing up some of those questions surrounding the missile program.
Before your day ends and another begins, get the latest news live from Seoul.
Residents whose features
restrictions is on the rise.
Closing ceremony.
Expert analysis from Asia's heartbeat.
The legislature, circumstances.
With a viewpoint only Korea's global network can provide.
The United States, the latest report.
Unrivaled access from a team always on standby.
meeting came on the news. We're trying to cover up the South.
The U.S. government gets back to business, but Washington is not out of the woods yet after its 16-day shutdown. President Barack Obama says the debt crisis has done damage to the U.S. economy. Our Song Ji-sun tells us more.
Federal employees in the United States returned to work Thursday, just a matter of hours after U.S. President Barack Obama signed a congressional budget agreement into law that ended the government shutdown. Obama expressed his thanks and said that people have recognized the importance of government functions. Despite not having to make any budgetary concessions to Republicans, Obama was careful not to gloat, saying there weren't any winners. He said the shutdown has seriously undermined the economy and damaged the international reputation of the U.S. political system. He also said Americans were completely fed up of their elected officials in Washington.
There are no winners here. These last few weeks have inflicted completely unnecessary damage on our economy. Nothing has done more damage to America's credibility in the world, our standing with other countries, than the spectacle that we've seen these past several weeks.
Financial services company Standard & Poor's says the 16-day shutdown that closed national parks and left hundreds of thousands of federal workers at home on unpaid leave cost the economy an estimated $24 billion. Obama issued an aggressive challenge to Congress, particularly the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, telling them to stop focusing on who wins and loses political battles and to work with him on issues critical to improving the economy. He also repeated his call for Congress to take a balanced approach on a budget for the rest of the current fiscal year and pass immigration reforms proposed by the Senate. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
In a sign which may indicate China's growth is back on track, third quarter growth came in at 7.8%. China's National Bureau of Statistics says that's up 0.3 percentage points from the previous quarter, and the figure marks the fastest growth in nearly a year. Experts point to the government's loose monetary policy and improvements in global economic conditions. Here in Seoul, shares rose to their highest closing level in 26 months on this Friday, with the benchmark Kospi closing at 2052.
And there's a new fashion trade show in town that is giving local indie designers a place to shine. It's called Fashion Code, and even though it's in its first year, it's aiming to become Asia's #1 fashion trade show. Kanye Lee was there.
Fashion meets art, art meets design, and design meets music. It's Fashion Code 2013. with a collection of about 150 brands, mostly independent, local ones, and a sprinkling in of foreign brands here and there. Korea's new fashion trade show puts some of the most original, unique apparel and designs on center stage.
What is this made of?
All of our products are real leather made of deer skin. They're hand-designed with paint and different coloring.
It's a very hands-on event, with visitors being allowed to meet the designers in person, try on some of the latest fashion items, and even be part of different photo projects, like this one by a local eyewear company.
The trade show is hosted by the Korea Creative Content Agency, and our goal was to get as many unique and original designers and brands as possible. So most of the exhibitors are indie designers or brands with character.
At one booth, visitors can even act as designers. It's a mobile app company that combines fashion, technology, and a bit of social networking.
The name of our app says it all. You are the designer lets anyone become a designer and create their own pair of shoes on their smartphones. The most interesting feature, though, is the fact that your design could be made into real shoes and be sold on our website.
If your design gets enough votes from other app users, then your concept shoe could come to life. So I gave it a try. Curved toe pumps, check. Teal leather, check. Pretty simple. If my shoe gets the votes, I could even get royalties for each purchase. Nice. Officials say most of the buyers coming to the show are from China and Japan. But there are also buyers from Europe who are particularly fond of Korean brands.
It's very creative and commercial at the same time.
Fashion Code runs through Saturday, and in the coming years, it hopes to be Asia's #1 fashion trade show. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
The 94th National Sports Festival has opened in Incheon with thousands of athletes competing in 46 different sports.
But there are a few high-profile names getting the spotlight. To tell us who they are, Stephen Che is standing by in the Sports Center. Hello there.
Hey guys, topping the list of the athletes is Marine boy Park Tae-hwan, who's looking to add more golds from the pool. He's participating in 5 races, the 200 and 400 meter freestyles, the 4x100 and 8x100 meter relays, and the 4x100 meter medley relay. He's hoping to win 5 golds, just like he did in 2007 and 2008 when he last competed there. Meanwhile, Olympic stars like rhythmic gymnast Son Yeon-jae, gold medalist archer Ki Bo-bae, and men's vault gold winner Yang Hak-sun will participate in the sports festival as well. Now on to world football. Veteran footballer Lee Young-pyo, currently playing for the Vancouver Whitecaps in the MLS, has once again announced his retirement. The 36-year-old fullback expressed the desire to make the playoffs with his team, who are just 3 points from a playoff spot with 2 matches left before he retires. Lee's career took him to multiple leagues in Korea and around the world, and he's also the 3rd most tenured player ever for the national team with 127 caps. And now let's wrap things up with the top matchups in the KBL. First, we head to Busan, where the KT Sonic Boom hosted the LG Sakers. Both teams were hot out the gate, but the Sakers kept up the heat, with first-year center Chris Massey emerging with 27 points and 17 rebounds for the night. LG wins with a final score of 109-85, becoming the 2nd team this year to break the 100-point barrier. Now it's the KCC Aegis taking on Anyang KGC in Jeonju. KCC ran away from the 3rd quarter, and also KGC just had no answer for big man Tyler Wilkerson, who put up 22 and 14 for his 3rd double-double in 4 games. And KCC wins over KGC 76-60. That does it for me here in the Sports Center. This has been Stephen Che. Check back at midnight for the latest in the world of sports.
Well, I hear this weekend will be perfect for those who plan to visit Mount Seorak or Mount Ode to check out the fall foliage.
Yes, for details, let's go over to our Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center. Now, Bo-kyung, what can we expect over the weekend?
Well, Ji-hae, the weekend will feel a lot like today when afternoon temperatures rose to average autumn levels. For details, let's take a look at the satellite map. As you can see, we have clear skies across the map due to a high pressure system from the East Sea. Now, tomorrow there may be about 5 millimeters of light showers in the East Coast regions. Otherwise, tomorrow morning is forecast to be slightly warmer than today. However, the big temperature gaps will persist. Now, our viewers in Japan should gear up for another tropical storm because Typhoon Francisco is forecast to make landfall on the south coast of the country next Thursday, but it should miss us here in Korea. Moving on to tomorrow's forecast, Seoul and Daegu hits 21 degrees, meanwhile Busan gets up to 22. Taking a look at other regions, Daejeon and Jeju reach the low 20s. Meanwhile, Dokdo and Mount Kumgang peak at 18 and 9 degrees respectively. That's all for now, and back to you guys.
Thanks, Bo-kyung. And that's a broadcast on this Friday night. I'm Yoo Ji-hae in Seoul.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend. We'll see you soon.